Yeah, hello and welcome to AIRISE. The session today is on prerequisites of AI in manufacturing, and that is what what AIRISE is about. We're supporting companies in getting on with AI, and especially that in manufacturing. Applications area in manufacturing are like design and engineering. So if you use AI to create a new product, monitoring and control, one of the applications area for sure on manufacturing systems where you use AI to control your production, manufacturing operations, which is the handling, which is maintenance, all the things that go around the machines, production chain, again, if you put the machines into a chain, how to use AI on facilitating that. Supply chain, how your material is being supplied, or how to, let's say, plan purchasing and delivery of material that you're going to use. And all of that, and that's one of the red bubbles here, training. So we're also addressing training to support people to learn on how to use AI. Now, AI in manufacturing is simply said, but we have someone with us today who can nicely define what AI in manufacturing is, and that is Harry Beekers. So Harry, would you just want to have a short start? How would you define AI in manufacturing?
Hi, Ulrich. Hi all. AI in manufacturing can be defined. If you ask different people, they will tell a different thing. The most general definition that we can give is that it's a sort of simulation of human intelligence, or try to emulate human intelligence and bring that into manufacturing problems in order to try and solve them in a better way that was possible up until now. In trying to understand what AI is for manufacturing, what AI can do for manufacturing, we need to first understand how AI works in general. And AI in general works by using or ingesting a large amount of training data, analyzing this data for different correlations and different patterns that might occur, and using these patterns in turn to make predictions. That's the basics of it. That's the essence of it. Of course, implementation differs from challenge to challenge, but these three main elements are there irrespective of what type of AI we're talking about and what type of application we are talking about. What needs to be mentioned, at least in my point of view, as regards AI in manufacturing, is that AI does not really have to be that complex. You know, these days we have been exposed, all of us, in a series of different applications that are very fancy, from large language models to all this discussion if AI is going to take over the world. It might be at some point, and there might be AI algorithms laughing at me that I'm not saying that, but we are not close to that point, and it definitely doesn't have to be that complex to apply AI in manufacturing. Why is that? It's because the technological principles behind most AI algorithms, most AI applications are very well established. There are basic tools and trainable AI models already accessible out there that can be deployed in a specific setting to solve a specific problem quite easily. Sources of information are plenty, and they are quite accessible and affordable these days. And the same is true also for computing resources. So computing resources can be easily bought, leased, or even employed as a service in order for a company to use AI in their manufacturing environment. So again, AI does not have to be the super duper thing that's only applicable in NASA. It can really be something that can come down to an SME level, be applied in a manufacturing environment, help people solve their daily issues. And this is what we are actively promoting through AIRISE, and where we want to support people with. That being said, that doesn't come like this. There are certain things that need to be in place, and I think this is why we're here today.
Yeah, right. Absolutely, Harry. That's cool. So yeah, nicely set the frame. For today, we discussed that we wanted to have the topics a bit aligned to areas like data, to IT, so infrastructure that is necessary to do, and people. So if we consider what is the main prerequisite for an SME, again, we're focusing on SMEs, what is the main prerequisite for having data that is driving AI in manufacturing?
That's a good question. It depends a bit on the implementation, and I know I probably should not be answering, should not be starting my answer with "it depends." That's a very generic statement, but it's also true. So, if we are talking about application of AI algorithms, for example, in quality control, then obviously you need to have sources of data that require sensors to be present. You need to somehow be able to capture signals from the process area, capture signals or images or anything that's related to the product in that sense, be able to communicate this information in real time or in near real time from the machine, so from the process area to the algorithms that is running somewhere, be it the edge or be it the cloud, and be able to not only transfer that data in near real time, but also be able to log that data, be able to retrieve that data for future use, so be able to have in place naming conventions, be able to have in place storage approach for data, be able to have in place an access approach for data. So this is being split up mainly in two things, and we are crossing a bit also to the IT infrastructure, but it really depends on the kind of data that you want to use. Just to give another example, moving a bit away from machines, because this is the thing that always pops up in mind. If we want to use AI to optimize scheduling, for example, or if we want to use AI to optimize supply chain approaches, then you need different kinds of data. You don't really need the sensor because you already most probably have this data in digital form somewhere, but you need to build a connector, or you need to establish a connection, I would say, to your ERP software, for example, or to your warehouse management software. You need for sure a source of data, and you need data somehow on a digital form. Let's try and put that in a general statement.
So it's really also linked not only to data that come from a sensor, but also data that comes from completely different sources. You mentioned ERP systems. Can that data also come from like external companies, other companies?
Very much so, especially if we are going towards supply chain optimization, where you really need to have that kind of information that you exchange with other companies. That's something that you definitely need. Again, it depends very much on the nature of the challenge that you are trying to solve with AI, and you can even start becoming really fancy on that front. So there are things, for example, related to designing new products, or there have been propositions related to designing new products that have been proposing using large language models to analyze customer feedback and understand a bit faster what the customers really need from a product, be able to propose different product variants so that you take that with you and be able to reach the market a bit faster. So again, we can differentiate quite a lot depending on what challenge we are trying to solve in this case.
Okay, but that also means that you need to be linked. So it is different places where the data resides. Things need to be connected, and you need to somehow do the computing and the, let's say, the extraction of information or the creation of new predictions. How do you see the challenge on IT, so information technology infrastructure for SMEs?
That's also a key building block for AI applications. We've mentioned that at the beginning as well, that AI on its core needs to use data to be trained with, and we use algorithms in order to predict, to make predictions based on this training data. Obviously, in order to be able to do that, in order to be able to have a seamless data stream from whatever source you might have until your algorithms, you really need to have a proper IT infrastructure in place. It's true that this is an area where I would expect quite a few of SMEs to struggle. Why? Because maybe their business does not really necessitate or didn't necessitate up until now to have a very advanced IT infrastructure. AI, especially relatively simple applications of AI, do not need to have super advanced IT infrastructure in place, but definitely require networking, definitely require to have a way of streaming data, definitely require to have somewhere to store your data, definitely require to have clear access policies for this data, and definitely require to have some sort of computing infrastructure in place. That computing infrastructure can be on premises, can be something that have a couple of PCs or a couple of edge devices.
What do you mean by premises? What does that mean, that word?
In your location, in your shop floor, in your company,
okay.
you could
so
have
on your shop floor, if you have the unit that does the computing on your shop floor, or if you have it externally.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of options that that are available to us these days. So you can have a PC on your shop floor that takes care of the computing, takes care of running the algorithms. You could even have dedicated edge devices, which are basically embedded electronics in a small form, in a relatively small form factor that can be integrated on top of your machines, very close to the machines, and most of them are designed to survive industrial environments. Or you could have nothing in your premises and just lease that. Have access to that as a service, have access to computing resources that reside somewhere else in a company that specializes in this kind of applications, and you just stream data there and get results back. You don't really need to invest heavily on that. There are solutions that are suitable for different applications, different cases.
I think that's a very good point that you're raising there, that the company does not really need, if I get it right, the company does not really need to buy a lot of compute units in order to do AI.
That's absolutely true. But even if they had to, if we look at from the other perspective and say, you know what, I don't want to send my data to anyone. I want to have full control of them. I want them to reside in my premises, never leave my premises, never leave my shop floor. And you want to invest on that. The investment is usually not that high, or not as high as people would imagine. Things related to quality control, for example, again, which is an application that we see quite a lot in the manufacturing environment, do not require a ton of computing power, and computing power these days is relatively affordable. So you can get edge devices for a few €100 that are more than capable of running AI algorithms and successfully implement AI in your software without, having to do a very big investment. The thing is that there are costs that are not directly associated to equipment. There are costs that are associated to people that need to run this equipment, or install this equipment, maintain this equipment, and this is something that we also need to consider on that side.
If I'm not wrong, then there's also a difference between training an AI model and running it on a machine, right? So that the amount of compute power is different if you train a model than compared to using it for quality decision or for machine control?
Absolutely. And also training, setting up a training and model is something that I really understand. It's one of the reasons why I understand SMEs can be hesitant towards AI, because this requires some technical knowledge of how AI works. And it requires, let's say, an expert view on the topic. Running and maintaining a model is a different story. The expertise level that you need for that is much lower. So this is also what we are trying to address through AIRISE up to a certain extent. Help people on the part of creating and deploying a model. So what they will have to do is basically maintaining that for the duration of their production, or for however long they want. So this is where we bring in expertise. This is where we aim to support SMEs in making the first steps, I would say, in the AI in manufacturing world.
Yeah, so that brings together data and IT and how to handle that. By the way, if any of the attendees wants to put a question, then please just jet them in. There's a chat box where you can put your questions and we'll try to address them later on. So please go ahead. Now, Harry, you've been talking about data, you've been talking about IT and IT equipment, all the options, doing it in-house or on-premise, as you said, or doing it externally, running it with AWS, like one of the big ones, or with Azure, which comes from Microsoft, to be a bit neutral on the products. So there are options there to run, to train your models externally and do the computing externally, but also options there to have smaller or larger devices locally on your machines, on your shop floor, wherever you need it. So that's kind of a design topic that you need to think about when thinking about an AI solution in manufacturing. Now, I've also been saying, okay, the people, to make the people, to put this data together. So people is one of the things that it's our third topic for today, which we I think need to discuss about, because people are always involved. If it is the machine operator, if it is the clerk entering a bill, or on supply chain issues, the person in another company. When you think about people, what would be the prime topic that you would discuss with an SME about?
Yeah, as you said, we need people in this loop, and that's proof that AI hasn't yet taken over over the world. So we still need to keep them in the loop. There are different aspects that we need to consider when it comes to people. We need to consider things related to their training and expertise. Again, different levels are required between training an AI system, maintaining and using an AI system. They definitely need to be aware of the basics of the technologies, of how the technology works, and how decisions are being made by an AI algorithm, and what kind of data is required, and how you would retrain or maintain the system in the long term. They obviously need to be aware of data, of the data topic, how data is being handled by the system, and that starts becoming a criticality when we are not dealing only with product-related data, but when we start dealing with personal data. So data that can be linked somehow to a certain person or to a certain person identity, which are sensitive.
You're not putting birth dates into a manufacturing control system, are you?
You're not putting birth dates, but still, you could have quite a lot of data that is linked to a certain person. For example, if you can
to an operator, for example, to an operator or to someone scanning parcels, or that kind of data link.
Exactly that type of data link. So if you can somehow link production data or defect rates to a specific operator that is profiling the operator in a way, and this data that can be used for them or against them, and this is something that the legislation is starting being quite strict on. There's quite a lot of discussion on personal data protection for quite a few years now. There are directives on ethical use of AI and what AI should comply with. There is this discussion going on, and the enforcement in a couple of years' time of the AI Act in the European Union that aims to protect humans that are involved somehow in systems where AI also operates, and the prerequisites or minimum requirements, I would say, on the ethical side of things for these AI systems. So ethics linked to people is not something that we should take lightly. It's something that really should be considered. The requirements there are quite, I would say, they are quite straightforward and quite logical if you follow how the whole thing is being structured. So it's not something that people should be scared of. It's just something that people need to be really aware of. And
it's more about creation of awareness rather than understanding the full box of AI algorithms that are running somewhere. It's this kind of awareness. What happens with the data? How is data handled? What it is being used for?
Yeah, That's exactly the case. And what I would like to state about that is that this is one of the areas that I expect to see quite a lot of discussions going on in the next few years. And this is also one of the areas that we tackle in AIRISE, where we help companies identify this kind of criticalities in their environment and provide a checklist also to tackle this kind of issues. So have a checklist of items that they need to be aware of, have a checklist of items that they need to discuss with their employees before deploying AI in their environment. That's a discussion that we could have for quite a few hours. And that's also a discussion that we could invite. Yeah,
exactly. I was wanted to make a break and to say, okay, yes, that you can dive very much into that topic of ethics. Usually, if you start to talk to someone about ethics, at least to my experience, people think, "Oh my God, that's a completely different topic. That what does it have to do with technology?" But yes, it is linked to that. But we won't dive into that one. Just for the audience, there is another webcast planned for, I think, beginning of June, isn't it? June?
That's correct.
5?
I think so, yeah.
June 5. So check out our website, look at airise.eu, where you also found this link. Check that out, look for the event and just register for it. So there we are going to dive a bit into what you guys need to do if you want to engage with AI with respect to ethics, what needs to be done from a legal point, what should be done to make people be happy, because that's one of the things, just perhaps before we cross over to questions, Harry, I've heard that operators have switched off systems because they didn't understand what was going on. Do you have a similar kind of experience?
Yeah, and it is something that these people need to understand. Not only operators, business owners as well, everyone that's involved with the technology. They really need to understand the implications. The data that is being used needs to be crystal clear to them, because this removes the fear of technology or lowers it significantly, I would say, so that people start trusting technology in that environment and wanting to make the most out of that. And again, it's the beginning and ending point of everything. So people need to be somehow in the center of this. And yeah, stop being afraid that AI is going to take over the world. As we were saying at the beginning.
About people, making people aware and involving people in this kind of development. I mean, there's quite a large set of application areas, as we have mentioned earlier. There's one question from the audience that is, what would you do first if I would want to apply AI to a manufacturing machine? So Harry, what would you say, what should that person do first?
Make sure that they understand the problem that's there in the first hand. So make sure that they understand very well what they want to do, and ensure that we can have sufficient data coming from that machine. So ensure it can be a machine, it can be anything in that case. So the answer wouldn't be much different if it was a different setting. Make sure that you have data available, because it is one of the main prerequisites of AI on that side. Make sure that this data is accessible at the time frame that is relevant for the process. So if you want to have closed loop control of the process through AI, obviously this needs to be available in near real time. And when I'm saying near real time, it needs to be comparable and much lower than the cycle time of the machine, for example. Make sure that you can have reliable access to this data. Make sure that you have a network in place to be able to retrieve that. And make sure that you have the computing infrastructure, computing resources in place. And last but not least, what we have been mentioning before, make sure that we inform the people that will be in touch with the technology. What is the intention? What data you collect? Why you collect them? How you use them? So that's if we could summarize, let's say, the main components, the main ingredients, yeah, that would be.
Okay, good. Yeah, fine. Thanks for that one. There's another question. There's a person saying, I'm designer of products. What happens if my product fails and I've been using AI for the creation of the construction of that product? Do you have an idea on how to answer that one?
That's a good one. That's a really good one. If we are talking about design and if we have issues on the design side of things, or if we are using about, let's say, quality control and we have quality control failures, most probably what happens is that either your model has been incorrectly trained and it needs to be somehow retrained on that, or you need to jump in and make some sort of corrective actions. I cannot think of any other scenario that this is failing other than, need to train that on a proper data set so that it creates appropriate results. But maybe there's something coming up in your mind as a response to that.
Okay, so let's see. I guess we will also have a webcast on this topic. So again, I would like to point you to the website. Check out for future webcasts. We're going to touch all of these areas. So if you look at design engineering, monitoring control, manufacturing operation, production chain, supply chain, or if you want to have training, if you're looking for training in order to skill up your engineers, to skill up your designers, to skill up your people at the shop floor, contact us and we're trying to sort that out. So there are no additional questions that I currently see. If you guys have any, drop us an email, ring us up, and we're happy to have a session together with you. Harry, before we close, what would you like the audience to do tomorrow?
That's also a good question. Think about AI. Think about AI as something that's not, again, only for NASA or very fancy applications. Think of AI as something that we can help you deploy very easily in your shop floor. Think if you have the basics in place, or if you can put the basics in place. And if you have a challenge that is solvable by AI, and if you think you can pull together the basics, then the next thing is go to the AIRISE website, airise.eu/course, and apply. We can support you.
A bit of marketing.
Yeah. Must do that.
Or people can ring us up directly and have a site contract if they want to have something instantly, I would say.
Definitely.
Okay, with that, any final word?
No, very, very excited for this new series. I hope that people are as excited as we are and are keen on learning more about AI in manufacturing. And we are at everyone's disposal for any questions and follow-ups.
Then, Harry, many thanks to you for being here and giving these ideas, giving clear instructions on what people should do, and setting the frame for AI in manufacturing. Thanks to you all. See you in our next session. Bye-bye.